to Europe. Africa currently mines 25% of the world's bauxite, yet exports almost all of it in raw material, while Africa, as a source of raw materials and market for finished products, contributed to Europe's industrialization. I request it is the turn for Europe to deploy their technologies and capital to now unlock the huge green energy resources to drive green industrialization using the natural resource endowments in the continent. Let me express my sincere gratitude for your support in the imminent conclusion of the Economic Partnership Agreement between the European Union and Kenya. This is a major leap forward in our trade and economic relationship. The EU remains one of our most important trading allies, accounting for more than a fifth of Kenya's global exports. I must emphasize the impact of this agreement extends far beyond trade statistics. It opens a world of opportunities, facilitating not only the exchange of goods, but also ideas and innovations. It is a bridge between people and cultures and continents. These are difficult times, no doubt. We find ourselves amidst a formidable storm of challenges, each not only complex in its own way, but also deeply interconnected. New and renewed international conflict and wars, as witnessed most recently in Ukraine, Israel, and Gaza, the Sahel, the Sudan, Somalia, the DRC, creating widespread human suffering and deepening divisions in a period where global collaboration and unity are of paramount importance. Democracy is under pressure in many parts of the world, and multilateral institutions, once the hope for international solidarity, are struggling to maintain broad-based acceptance, relevance, and effectiveness. At the same time, progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals is unraveling. Rising interest rates and looming debt distress make it much harder for countries to address their own socioeconomic challenges. High cost of living, fiscal strain, and migration are weakening international solidarity. And most existentially, the world, as a UN Secretary General reminded us recently, is literally on fire. The era of global boiling. It used to be global warming, emphasizing the severe and escalating impact of climate change. The escalating severity of climate change is particularly acute and poignant in Africa, a continent that, despite its minimal contribution to global emissions, finds itself at the forefront of environmental vulnerability. In Africa, with less buffers to address climate change challenges, we feel the impact more directly and more acutely. Consider, for example, the significant influence of high inflation rates on voting behaviors in your region, and I'm told you're going to elections shortly. Now imagine the impact of a year-on-year food price inflation exceeding 10% in sub-Saharan African countries, where food makes up a third of household expenses. These challenges are not isolated. They are interconnected layers of a complex historical, economic, and environmental narrative that the continent endures. Africa still carries the scars of colonialism, which remain visible in the economic and institutional dependencies that continue to hinder progress and perpetuate social and political fragility. Acknowledging these issues is important, but focusing solely on them risks obscuring the broader horizon and opportunity. The adversarial North versus South dynamic has not served us well. denying us the opportunity to leverage each other's strengths. Similarly, the East versus West divide is untenable and counterproductive, working against the interests of all of us. Climate change has introduced a new dimension into this complex equation. While it poses an existential threat, climate change has also emerged as a leveling force, equalizing us all in the face of a shared global challenge, transcending all divides, north-south, east-west, developed or developing. Collectively, therefore, we have the means to make progress. Advanced technology, robust financial systems, and dynamic markets, alongside pioneering advantages in various sectors, are key assets of the global North. Historically, the global South has played a vital role in supporting North's industrialization by providing raw materials and markets. Now, as we navigate a new era of global interdependence, this needs to evolve into a reciprocal relationship, a shift towards a more balanced and equitable global partnership with a deliberate transfer of technologies and intentional flow of capital to the global South. And to this also means a seat at the table to look for solutions that work for all of us in a spirit of cooperation and mutual understanding. Thus, it is essential to reassess long-standing assumptions that sometimes are not true, rethink perceived barriers, and question default decisions. We need to be bold and strategic, and also take the decisive step towards structural shift required to fulfill the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and keep global warming at 1.5 degrees centigrade. This was precisely the premise of the inaugural Africa Climate Summit that I hosted in Nairobi in September. The summit provided a platform not just to discuss the challenges we face, but to view them through the lens of solutions and opportunities. Therefore, I'm hopeful because there exists a real opportunity, an opportunity to reach sustainable, equitable prosperity for all of humanity, an opportunity for the European Union to accelerate its race to net zero, decarbonize its industry, and build the economy of the future. And an opportunity for Africa to provide security and stability for all Africans while taking its rightful place in the 21st century economy. The Africa Climate Summit culminated in the Nairobi Declaration, which sets out the vision and a pathway for Africa to be a vital part of the global solution to the existential climate change challenge that we all face. The declaration captures the consensus of the African government leaders for climate-positive growth. We have the world's biggest untapped renewable energy potential, the youngest and fastest-growing workforce and human capital, and relevant natural resources and assets. 60%, for example, of the world's best solar potential is in Africa, as well as 60% of the remaining unused arable land in the world. These assets create an inherent ability for Africa to produce green from the start, cost-competitive products and services, and to provide some of the highest quality carbon removal services anywhere in the world. When it comes to green economy, our reality is marked differently from that of Europe. Over 600 million Africans are deprived of access to energy, a fundamental prerequisite for dignified living and the provision of basic yet vital services like health and education. Adding to this is the fact that almost 1 billion Africans lack access to clean cooking. While the global narrative often emphasizes energy transition, for most of Africa, it is about energy growth, energy expansion, and energy access. It follows that how Africa takes on this challenge will matter a great deal both regionally and globally. It will matter whether Africa can transform into a green powerhouse that helps the world decarbonize. Equally important is the focus on providing education and opportunities for youth of Africa. By investing in education and skills development in our young population, Africa can create a vibrant, self-sustaining economy that offers its youth compelling reasons to build their future at home in Africa. This approach, underpinned by structured migration, can alleviate the pressure on regions like Europe, which increasingly rely on economic migrants to maintain their standards of living. Adopting this agenda is not just a choice, but a necessity. The alternative, which neglects Africa's development and industrialization and fails to invest in the young generation, is not, members, a viable option. Allow me to illustrate with a few tangible examples of how our strategies and interests converge. In Kenya, for example, we already have a 92% green grid. Our challenge is not how to get that to 100%, because we will. Rather, our challenge is how to grow it from its current size of just 3 gigawatts, which is, I'm told, less than 25% of the Paris metropolitan area for a country with 5 times as many people. We want to grow our grid to 100 gigawatts by 2050 so that it can power green industrialization and create prosperity through green growth. In June this year, this very parliament adopted legislation to create the enabling environment for the domestic production of 10 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030 and the import of a similar amount in order to green EU's industry. African countries are recognized as potential producers of this green hydrogen, and we welcome the collaboration. Kenya, for example, is developing a plant to produce green fertilizer, which will reduce our import dependency, and we have an opportunity to export green hydrogen from our geothermal resources to Europe. Another EU-relevant example is bauxite. Africa currently mines 25% of the world's bauxite, yet exports almost all of it in raw material. If Africa's renewable energy potential were deployed to smelt currently mined bauxite into aluminium, we could save millions of tons of CO2 equivalent and generate hundreds of thousands of jobs in our continent. And aluminium is just one example of many. Green steel is another. Not to mention Africa's significant global deposits of critical minerals, or our potential to produce sustainable fuels. By tapping into these resources and employing green technologies, Africa can contribute significantly to global decarbonization efforts while boosting its own economic development, creating a win-win scenario for both the continent and the world. While Africa, as a source of raw materials and market for finished products, contributed to Europe's industrialization, there has been tremendous growth in technology and capital. It is, ladies and gentlemen, I request, it is the turn for Europe to deploy their technologies and capital to now unlock the huge green energy resources to drive green industrialization using the natural resource endowments in the continent, global green products and services, create jobs, and at the same time, decarbonize Europe and global growth.
So there you have it, guys. Our African leaders are really trying their best to manage Africa's challenges as much as they are. And when we show these speeches here on this channel, we actually encourage to share our thoughts in the comments. And so whatever it is you guys think about these speeches, please do share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please share and like and subscribe because that's the way you support Kwazemy as a channel, an Afrocentric channel, where we try to understand deeper issues in African history and hopefully develop a collective intelligence on how we wish to build the Africa we want to see as people of Africa. See you in the next one.